The segment opens by explaining how Senate procedures set the stage for a key legislative moment. Chuck Schumer signaled his intention to move forward with a bill using unanimous consent, a process that allows legislation to pass quickly if no senator objects. This method depends heavily on coordination behind the scenes. Republican leadership, including John Thune, had advance notice through internal communication channels known as hotlines, which alert senators to upcoming actions and allow them to approve or block them remotely. Because a single objection can stop the process, prior awareness and agreement are crucial. This context highlights that what followed on the Senate floor was not spontaneous, but the result of pre-coordinated procedural steps. At the critical moment, Markwayne Mullin, a Republican known for supporting Donald Trump, briefly entered the Senate chamber and signaled agreement with Chuck Schumer. His gesture, followed by a handshake, served as an informal confirmation that there would be no Republican objection. Shortly afterward, the chamber was notably absent of Republican presence in positions typically used to block such requests. This absence mattered because unanimous consent requires active opposition to stop it. Without any senator stepping in, the process moves forward automatically. The moment suggested that, despite political divisions, there had already been internal agreement to allow the measure to proceed without resistance. With no objections raised, Chuck Schumer formally requested unanimous consent to take up and pass the legislation. The bill, focused on increasing transparency around materials connected to Jeffrey Epstein, was brought forward without debate or amendment. Because unanimous consent requires full agreement, the absence of any opposing senator meant the measure advanced immediately. In a matter of moments, the Senate approved the bill as soon as it was received from the House, bypassing the usual extended discussion or procedural hurdles. This swift passage underscored how Senate rules can accelerate decisions when leadership on both sides has already aligned behind the scenes. Following the Senate's rapid action, Mike Johnson expressed frustration with how the situation unfolded. He suggested that the measure moved forward too quickly and indicated he had limited awareness of the timing while attending an official event. However, the timeline described earlier shows that the plan had been publicly announced in advance and circulated through congressional communication channels. This raised questions about whether the outcome reflected a breakdown in coordination or differing expectations between House and Senate leadership. The response highlighted tensions within the party over strategy, particularly regarding how the legislation would be handled once it reached the Senate. The situation quickly led to criticism of how Republican leadership handled the process. Observers argued that expectations set by Mike Johnson about potential Senate changes did not match what ultimately occurred. When the bill passed without amendments, it created the impression of a strategic misstep. At the same time, Senate Republicans, including those aligned with John Thune, were seen as having allowed the measure to proceed without resistance, suggesting internal agreement rather than surprise. This contrast between expectations and outcome fueled claims of poor coordination or miscommunication within party leadership. Overall, the episode was framed as a moment where planning and execution did not align, leading to criticism from multiple angles. The narrative then shifts to the broader political implications for Donald Trump. Because the legislation centers on transparency related to Jeffrey Epstein, the moment is portrayed as politically sensitive given past public associations between the two figures. Commentary around the event suggests that the lack of resistance from Republican senators, even those typically supportive of Trump, could signal a change in political dynamics. Rather than framing it as direct opposition, the situation is presented as an instance where lawmakers chose not to intervene in a process tied to a controversial issue. This interpretation positions the vote as more than procedural, highlighting its potential relevance to intra-party relationships and public perception. Beyond the immediate vote, commentators frame the moment as potentially indicative of a broader shift within Republican politics. The decision by senators to allow the measure to pass without objection is interpreted as a sign that party unity may not be as firm as before, particularly on issues tied to Jeffrey Epstein. In this view, the episode reflects a changing dynamic in how lawmakers respond to politically sensitive topics, especially those connected to Donald Trump. Rather than direct confrontation, the lack of intervention itself is seen as meaningful. While it remains unclear whether this signals a lasting shift, the event is presented as a notable departure from previous expectations of consistent party alignment. The segment closes by emphasizing the uncertainty surrounding what comes next. While the Senate's unanimous action marked a notable moment, its longer-term political impact remains unclear. Observers suggest the decision could influence how future legislation, especially on sensitive topics, is handled within both parties. The unexpected nature of the vote, particularly its connection to matters involving Jeffrey Epstein, underscores how quickly political dynamics can shift. For figures like Donald Trump, the situation may carry implications for relationships within the party, though the extent of any lasting change is still uncertain. Ultimately, the moment is framed as significant not just for the policy itself, but for what it might signal about evolving alignments and decision-making in Congress. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more clear, fact-based summaries of major political developments. Stay informed as stories involving figures like Donald Trump and ongoing issues connected to Jeffrey Epstein continue to evolve. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this moment signals a real shift in political dynamics, or just a one-time event?